An Illinois mayor is getting national attention for the way that she's spending taxpayer dollars.
WGN Investigates has learned South suburban politician Tiffany Henyard has lost another key ally. Until recently, Henyard enjoyed near unanimous support on the Thornton Township Board, but now trustee Carmen Carlisle says after trusting Henyard and remaining silent, she will be a whistleblower against Henyard.
As information that indicates the FBI has launched an investigation into controversial Dalton mayor and Thornton Township supervisor.
The story of Tiffany Henyard Dalton, the self-proclaimed super mayor, has taken a dark and disturbing turn, revealing a tale of corruption, extravagant spending, and a complete disregard for the people she was elected to serve. Initially viewed as a small-town leader with grand ambitions, Henyard's rise to power has now evolved into one of the most scandalous cases of financial mismanagement and abuse of public funds. A recent FBI raid on Henyard's home uncovered millions of dollars hidden away in a manner reminiscent of a Hollywood thriller, exposing a lavish lifestyle funded by the very taxpayers she was supposed to represent. Henyard's journey to power began in 2021 after the unexpected death of former mayor Frank Zuccarelli, which led to her swift and controversial rise. Despite widespread skepticism, Henyard seized the opportunity to take on the role of Dalton's mayor, and she further cemented her influence by also taking on the role of supervisor for Thornton Township, a position that secured her an annual salary of $200 million. However, instead of focusing on improving the community, Henyard seemed more interested in creating a personal empire, complete with luxury vacations, designer shopping sprees, and extravagant spending, all at the expense of the town's already strained finances. What initially seemed like a promising leadership story quickly devolved into a tale of egotistical excess. As Henyard flaunted her self-proclaimed title of super mayor, the town of Dalton spiraled deeper into financial disarray. Allegations soon surfaced that Henyard had been using her authority not to serve the people, but to fund her own lavish lifestyle. Luxury vacations to Las Vegas, designer shopping sprees, and even a $500,000 driveway for her mother were among the reported indulgences funded by taxpayer money. As Dalton struggled under a $3.5 million debt, Henyard's reckless financial decisions sparked outrage and disbelief among residents. One of the first major red flags during Henyard's administration was her promise to secure funding for housing veterans and seniors, alongside plans for revitalizing the town. However, these lofty promises were overshadowed by troubling revelations about her spending habits. In particular, her so-called Henyard Care Foundation, a breast cancer charity, came under scrutiny. While it appeared to be a noble cause at first, investigators soon discovered that many of the donations were actually funded by taxpayer dollars, raising suspicions about the true intentions behind the charity. Receipts show that Henyard had been living in luxury on the public dime, spending thousands of dollars on travel, hotel stays, and upscale amenities, all charged to Dalton and Thornton Township credit cards. Perhaps the most shocking example of her misuse of funds occurred during a business trip to Springfield. Rather than focusing on her municipal duties, Henyard transformed the trip into a personal extravaganza. She stayed at high-end hotels, took motorbike rides, and even brought along an entourage that included a DJ and a drone photographer. The entire spectacle, complete with lavish meals, luxury accommodations, and a fleet of vehicles, was all paid for by Dalton and Thornton Township. This blatant misuse of public funds shocked many residents, who were struggling to make ends meet while their mayor lived like a celebrity. The scandal didn't stop there. Henyard also profited from selling merchandise, including t-shirts and hoodies, which were ordered using Thornton Township funds. When questioned about these transactions, Henyard refused to clarify, only fueling suspicions of financial mismanagement and self-serving behavior. It seemed clear that she was using her position not to improve the community, but to build her own personal brand. To make matters worse, Henyard's self-promotion campaign took things to another level. She plastered her face on massive billboards throughout Dalton, paid for by taxpayer dollars. These billboards were not used for election purposes, but to glorify Henyard herself. The public outcry was swift and overwhelming, with many accusing her of crossing ethical lines. Public funds are meant to be used for community improvement, not for building the personal image of an elected official. Even seasoned political figures were stunned by Henyard's audacity. and the billboards were seen as a clear misuse of public resources. Henyard's leadership quickly became a symbol of unchecked power, greed, and self-interest. While the town struggled under massive financial debt, Henyard continued to indulge in a lifestyle of excess, living like a star on a reality TV show. Her refusal to address the town's financial troubles and her blatant disregard for the well-being of her constituents became defining features of her tenure. Perhaps the most perplexing aspect of Henyard's time in office was the extravagant security detail she assembled for herself. Despite the small-town setting, Henyard established a round-the-clock security team, reportedly costing taxpayers millions of dollars. Some members of her security detail were paid as much as $113,000 for just 303 hours of work in a single 2-week period, leading to suspicions that hours were being inflated or worse, that time was being manipulated to rack up excessive wages. In total, Henyard's security team drained over $1 million from Dalton's already strained budget. While Dalton faced a mountain of debt, Henyard continued to prioritize her own safety and comfort over the town's urgent needs. This lavish security detail, along with the mayor's extravagant spending on travel, self-promotion, and luxury items, sent a clear message that she was more interested in protecting herself than in addressing the struggles of her community. The fallout from her actions has left Dalton in a state of disarray, with a growing mistrust of Henyard's leadership and mounting criticism from the public. Henyard's refusal to listen to criticism only intensified the situation. When the town's police chief refused to comply with her demands, Henyard fired him, a move that further embarrassed Dalton's residents and raised serious questions about her leadership. Her obsession with controlling every aspect of her administration, from her security detail to her self-promotion efforts, painted a disturbing picture of a leader more focused on personal gain than on the well-being of the people she was meant to serve. As federal investigations continue into Henyard's financial activities, the people of Dalton are left to deal with the fallout of having elected a leader who seemed more concerned with building her own empire than with improving the town. The extravagant spending, misuse of public funds, and blatant disregard for ethical boundaries have left a lasting stain on Henyard's legacy. What began as a story of a small-town leader with big dreams has spiraled into a cautionary tale of corruption, greed, and the abuse of public office. Henyard's story serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of holding public officials accountable. The people of Dalton, who once hoped for change and revitalization, now find themselves grappling with the consequences of electing a leader whose priorities were so clearly misaligned with their needs. The fallout from Henyard's actions will likely continue to reverberate throughout the town for years to come, leaving a deep scar in Dalton's history and a lesson for future generations about the perils of political corruption. Dalton, a once thriving village, has become the center of a political storm as residents and public officials alike have started to uncover the shocking details of Mayor Tiffany Henyard's reign of financial mismanagement, unethical conduct, and retaliation against those who dared to oppose her. What was supposed to be a story about local governance has turned into a saga of scandal, greed, and power abuse. It has raised serious concerns about the ethical responsibilities of public officials, especially those entrusted with managing public funds. In the early days of Henyard's tenure as mayor, residents began to voice concerns about her lavish lifestyle, including frequent trips with village staff and extravagant spending on personal security details. Despite mounting pressure, Henyard dismissed these concerns, claiming they were simply part of the life of a public figure. However, the public didn't buy into this narrative. After all, being a mayor does not come with VIP treatment or a personal bodyguard funded by taxpayer dollars, especially when the town was facing significant financial challenges. At the same time, Dalton was drowning in debt, with the village struggling under a crippling multi-million-dollar deficit. While Henyard continued to live her high life, residents of Dalton were growing increasingly disillusioned with her leadership. The cracks in her administration began to show. Jason House, a reliable source from within the community, blew the whistle on Henyard's extravagant spending, revealing how she had taken lavish trips funded by the town, contributing to Dalton's growing debt. His comments painted a damning picture of Henyard's mismanagement and questionable priorities, suggesting that she had confused serving the public with serving her own self-interest. Instead of using taxpayer funds to address the needs of the town, Henyard was using them to support her luxurious lifestyle. However, the financial mismanagement wasn't the only issue that began to surface. Henyard's response to those who dared to question her leadership was nothing short of tyrannical. Anyone who challenged her was swiftly met with retribution, whether that meant losing their job, having their business license revoked, or facing intimidation tactics. Business owners who disagreed with her policies found themselves facing retaliation, and employees who refused to engage in unethical practices were terminated. One particularly egregious example involves Dwayne Thrash, a longtime Thorne Township employee. According to Thrash, he was fired after refusing to participate in a scheme where Henyard wanted to replace an attorney with someone her assistant preferred. Despite being offered a $100,000 pay increase to comply, Thrash held firm to his ethical standards and paid the price by losing his job. Thrash filed a lawsuit for unfair dismissal, but his case is far from unique. Armin Carlisle, a former trustee and once an ally of Henyard, has completely changed her tune, now speaking out against the mayor's corrupt practices. She revealed in an interview that she believes there are many others who have been retaliated against, fired, or lied to by Henyard, but have yet to come forward. Carlisle's comments suggest that Henyard's grip on power was maintained through fear and intimidation, with any dissent swiftly punished. Then there is Valerie Stubbs, another former trustee who spoke out about her shocking experience with Henyard's oppressive rule. Stubbs recounted how police officers arrived at her doorstep simply because she disagreed with the mayor, an event that further illustrated Henyard's use of law enforcement to intimidate her political rivals and critics. It was clear that Henyard wasn't just running the village. She was attempting to control every aspect of it, using fear and manipulation as her primary tools. Fenna Dukes, Henyard's former assistant, is yet another person who has joined the growing list of those suing the mayor. Dukes claims that she was sexually harassed during a taxpayer-funded trip, and when she reported the incident to Henyard, she was retaliated against and subsequently dismissed. The list of people speaking out against Henyard continued to grow, with many individuals being coerced into spying on Henyard's detractors or being placed on unpaid medical leave after reporting sexual harassment. These allegations paint a grim picture of life under Henyard's rule, where dissent was crushed with a ruthless hand, and the well-being of workers was secondary to her quest for power and personal gain. As more information about Henyard's unethical behavior and financial misconduct emerged, it became evident that Dalton was being run more like a personal kingdom than a democratic community. The town, already struggling with debt, now found itself in the grip of a leader whose actions seemed more focused on self-service than public service. Henyard's increasing number of enemies, coupled with her growing list of questionable decisions, suggested that her leadership was on the verge of collapse. The situation reached a boiling point when Henyard, during a heated village board meeting, claimed that the community was attacking her and vowed to defend herself against what she called a smear campaign. However, the facts didn't align with her narrative. While Henyard continued to shift blame onto others, the financial crisis in Dalton only worsened. The town now faced a staggering $2 million deficit, with hundreds of thousands of dollars owed for basic services like street paving and tree trimming. Despite the growing financial strain, Henyard failed to recognize the severity of the situation, with the village operating without an annual audit since 2021. Without proper oversight, financial mismanagement quickly spiraled out of control, leaving Dalton vulnerable to corruption and wasteful spending. Amid the chaos, former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot was brought in to investigate Henyard's spending. Lightfoot's findings were shocking, revealing that the town now faced a $3.65 million deficit in its general fund. Spending, particularly within the police department, had surged by 21%, raising suspicions that Henyard had been using taxpayer funds irresponsibly. While Henyard tried to deflect responsibility, claiming that her former right-hand man, Freeman Keith, missiled her about financial decisions, residents and the village board were growing increasingly skeptical of her excuses. Keith, who had been a close ally of Henyard, was now facing charges of bankruptcy fraud, and rumors suggested he was cooperating with investigators. His testimony could be the key to unraveling Henyard's entire operation, and it seemed as though her world was slowly falling apart. Despite her attempts to play the victim, claiming that the village board and public were out to get her because she was a woman, Henyard's excuses weren't holding up. The public was no longer buying into her narrative. As the situation escalated, the state of Illinois intervened, freezing Dalton's funds and essentially taking away the town's financial autonomy. The state no longer trusted the local government to manage the funds properly. Henyard's power appeared to be slipping away, but the problems didn't end there. The FBI entered the investigation, demanding access to Henyard's financial records, including payroll, travel expenses, and reimbursements. What they uncovered was staggering. In addition to questionable financial decisions, the FBI found large sums of cash hidden away in Henyard's possession. The investigation was no longer just about mismanagement, but had expanded to include possible wire fraud and embezzlement. As the investigation continues, the question on everyone's mind is whether Henyard's extravagant lifestyle was just the result of bad financial decisions or part of a larger scheme to funnel taxpayer money into her own pockets. The FBI is now looking into everything, from her financial records to company documents, and even her so-called charity. If the investigation proves that Henyard has been engaged in criminal activity, the consequences could be severe, with the possibility of prison time looming on the horizon. For the people of Dalton, the future is uncertain. The town's funds have been frozen, and the financial hole Henyard has created may take years to fix. The village needs new leadership, someone who can restore fiscal responsibility and rebuild the trust of the community. The road ahead will be long and difficult, but the residents of Dalton deserve better than the corrupt and self-serving leadership they've had under Henyard. In hindsight, the question remains: could Dalton have done more to prevent Henyard's rise to power? Could the village board have acted sooner to address the red flags? Now, with a broken community and a tarnished reputation, Dalton must clean house and restore its financial health. The town needs leadership that puts the well-being of the people first, not one that treats the public coffers like their own personal ATM. The people of Dalton must come together to demand accountability, transparency, and a future free from corruption.